Hello, my name is Sarah Saenz, and on behalf of the FBI Association of Intelligence Analysts, we're excited to discuss the growing role of intelligence in modern security and the value intelligence professionals bring to the private sector. The FBI AIA was formed in late 2021 by a small group of former FBI analysts who sought to build a community to advance the careers of intelligence analysts in the private sector and government through mentoring, networking, advocacy, and programming like this. As we continue to grow, we're excited to host the CEO of one of our sponsors, Chuck Marino, who is the CEO of Sentinel Security. It is a premier intelligence-driven security and risk management firm that helps organizations and high-profile individuals identify, assess, and mitigate complex threats. Chuck is a nationally recognized security intelligence expert with more than 2 decades of experience spanning the U.S. Secret Service, the Department of Homeland Security, and the private sector. His work has consistently emphasized the importance of intelligence, threat analysis, and strategic risk management as foundational elements of effectively security programs. Today, we'll discuss the growing importance of intelligence-led security, the unique contributions intelligence analysts bring to the security profession, and the value of fostering a strong intel community through organizations like the FBI Association of Intel Analysts. Chuck, thanks for coming on today. Thank you for joining us. And before we dive into the discussion, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your professional journey, and the mission of Sentinel Security?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. It's good to be with you, and of course, we're proud to sponsor your group. The importance of intelligence is obviously translates over to Sentinel, and so we think that this partnership is extremely important, not just for one another, but also for the industry. So we're very happy and honored to be a part of it. Yeah, I'm currently the CEO of Sentinel. I was in the Secret Service for almost 20 years, where I started my career in the New York field office as an investigator, working primarily financial crimes cases, electronic cyber crimes cases, and also doing protection. And then from there, went to DC, where I served on the presidential details for President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, Vice President Biden, and then went on and served as a senior law enforcement advisor to the Secretary of Homeland Security, and then went out to San Francisco, where I led our Northern California field operations from Bakersfield, California, all the way up to Sacramento. Following that, I went and worked for Oracle as the Senior Director of Protective Operations, where I oversaw the executive protection functions for the founder and owner of CEO, the CEOs, and the presidents of the regions around the world. Also oversaw many of the premier sporting events that Oracle sponsored, like the America's Cup, the BNP Paribas in Palm Springs, helped out with college tennis. And so that began my passion for security and sports, which we continue to do today in Sentinel. So founded Sentinel in 2017, became operational in 2018, and have never looked back, and continue to expand today, serving a diverse pool of clients.
Awesome. Thank you, Chuck. That's really a unique career that spans government service and the private sector. And I think your perspectives really give a front row seat to how threats have evolved over time. Since you've spent kind of this career at, the intersection of government, intelligence, and security, what do you believe, why do you believe intelligence-led security is so critical in today's threat environment?
Well, I think it's an essential foundation if you're truly intending on helping clients understand and mitigate risk. The world's a complicated place. here in the United States, we face more threats from more places at any time in our history. It's always been about looking for a needle in a haystack when it comes to threat detection. And I could argue that the haystack's never been as large as it is today, which makes the job extremely difficult for intelligence analysts and security professionals. I think it enforces the need in partnerships to expand your reach and to rely on others and also consider their expertise and their experience in helping to navigate these threats. And really, it helps us as a strategic consulting group to really be able to go into our clients with a thorough understanding of what the threats are, knowing that no two threats are the same. They all originate from, be it nation states or organized groups or lone actors. And so coming to our clients with an understanding of where these threats originate, kind of a historical component of these threats, and the best ways to be on the proactive side in identifying and mitigating, and keeping the realistic option that in some cases you are responding to threats in real time. However, making that response requirement the minority and not the majority in terms of the percentages. You want to put the majority of your work on being as proactive as possible and realizing that you're not going to be able to detect and mitigate in advance, disrupt all of the threats.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think being proactive is kind of a core as part of being an intelligence analyst, and perhaps what, distinguishes intelligence led security programs versus a traditional security program. And so
Right.
I know Sentinel has kind of assembled a team of significant intel community and law enforcement experience, including our own AIA board chair, Nikki Ruttman. What value do you see intelligence analysts bring to, organizational security and risk management?
Yeah. Well, my belief is intelligence is so important to serving as that essential foundation that I just spoke about, that I decided I wanted to own it in its entirety. That is, I wanted all the work that we did in intelligence to be a Sentinel product. I wanted to stand behind what we were doing. And because of that approach, I decided that I was going to invest in it significantly. I was going to invest in getting the right people, getting the right technologies, investing and implementing the right policies and procedures, and offering unique tailored products to each of our clients to help navigate the threat environment. And so that started with the people. And I think with Nikki Ruttman and Claire Moravec and Ashlyn Callagher, many from the FBI intelligence division with a broad range of experience and expertise, gave me the foundation that I was looking for. Of course, they are supported by experienced intelligence analysts that serve all of our clients, but I knew from a strategic level that I needed that experience, that mindset, to really force us to, one, have the best of the best in terms of these policies and programs in which our clients would benefit, but also in forcing me as the CEO, who, being from the Secret Service, we're not a member of the intelligence community. A lot of people don't realize that, and that's on purpose. But what we are vast consumers of the IC and the products that they produce. So I've always had a true appreciation for intelligence products because it allowed us to put forth the security preparations that were needed to protect the people that we were protecting. and to make sure that we were getting in and out of certain locations as safely as we possibly could. So it kind of is a slowdown mechanism where it forces you to understand and have to slow down and understand all of these complexities that have to do with threats. And because it forces you to have that thorough understanding of these threats, I think ultimately our clients benefit all day long. And, clients being clients, we encourage them to ask a lot of questions.
Right.
And so the fact that we're able to go back and forth with them on the way these threats may impact different areas of their businesses, whether it's brand reputation, continuity of business, crisis management, the list goes on and on. I think really is exciting and educational for them, but it gives them a firm understanding in something that's very challenging for most security executives. And that's, how do you articulate return on investment for
Mhm.
security and intelligence functionalities? So I
Right.
think these Q&A opportunities that we give to them demonstrate that over and over.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. And I think, you're kind of iterating kind of like the skills that Intel analysts kind of bring on. It really brings increasingly valuable as organizations kind of face more complex and interconnected threat landscape.
Yeah.
And to your point about having a little bit more demand from clients to give that intelligence-driven decision making. And so, but I know sometimes perhaps maybe Sentinel's work might involve, helping leaders navigate uncertainty. Can you share an example of how intelligence helps organizations move, as you kind of mentioned before, from reacting to threats versus like anticipating them and being more proactive?
Yeah, I think, by anticipating threats, it will often drive change, whether it's change in security posture that remains dynamic, depending on the threat reporting that we're delivering on a consistent basis to our clients, whether they want it monthly or quarterly or annually, we will adapt to whatever they want. And especially if there are significant events taking place around the world, we will often step those up for our clients. But by anticipating and understanding the changing threat landscape, I think our clients are in a better position to make sure that they're postured. Of course, we spoke about the importance of being proactive.
Mhm.
Um, Look, we talk about something like crisis management, and CEOs have an idea about the way they individually manage a crisis, but how do they manage it across the organization? And, we often tell CEOs it's not about as much as who you have at the table as opposed to who you don't have at the table. It's amazing in an organization, almost every organization I've had experience with, everybody wants to be at the table during a crisis. But what does that do? What's the negative impact of that? Well, it slows down and complicates decision making. So what it forces the CEO to do is to decide, who do I really need at the table to make sure that we're covered, right? That communications is covered, that business operations are covered, that HR is covered, that all of these important essential functions that need to be immediately addressed and handled during a crisis are going to be covered. And then from there, it can trickle down to the other business lines throughout the organization. So things like preparedness for crisis management, and also security posture, and things like cyber. Look, I mean, many of these large businesses are experiencing, in some cases, thousands of cyber attacks a day. And how that's evolving with artificial intelligence, right? Where, now patching, for example, of cyber networks is something that's happening automatically, as opposed to the way it used to be, where the CISO had to go in and make sure that all of the updated patches from a certain provider were being implemented to make sure that an organization was being thoroughly protected. So really, we like to set our CEOs up for success. And we find that they appreciate almost the daily or weekly table topping based on how quickly these world events are developing. This weekly table topping, if you will, just verbally on how they should be preparing themselves based on a specific threat.
Yeah, that's such a great point. You brought up a lot of great points, and especially bringing folks to the table. That's sort of part of our mission as part of the AIA is really to kind of strengthen and sustain the intelligence profession beyond a government service. And so, the association is really kind of dedicated to advancing, the intelligence profession and supporting its members. And really many of our members are kind of at different stages of their careers, including some who may be, considering opportunities, outside government. Just to kind of shift the conversation more about, the association and the professionals in general. What value do you kind of see in maintaining a network of intelligence professionals, like who continue to kind of collaborate and share expertise, after government service?
Yeah, it's a different mindset. I mean, that's if you're asking me personally, the
Yeah.
value that one of the value adds that I see is analysts have a different mindset and they think about things differently than I do. They're going to think about things differently than the clients do. We're talking about, clients that are CEOs. What we know about CEOs is they are intense consumers of information. They love things like metrics. They love to ask questions like, why would you say that? Why do you have this opinion about a certain threat? Why do you think a particular threat or threats is going to impact me, my business? And so as a security practitioner, you've got to be prepared for these types of questions. And again, back to the intelligence analyst mindset. One thing that you and I both know, and many people that are going to listen to this know, is that you're pretty buttoned up in terms of any type of product or conclusion or recommendation that you're going to bring forth to clients that are going to make sure that somebody like me, when you sit down with these clients, is going to be in the best position possible to have that type of conversation, that sometimes that type of debate that takes place about world issues. And again, it's not that you're trying to just convince on the surface that somebody should take actions. You want to provide the tangible information, the tangible metrics that say, look, this is why we conclude what we conclude. Here's why we think that your particular line of business may be in the crosshairs and why we recommend these specific recommendations. And it's usually, it makes the conversation a lot more robust. Usually something that's scheduled to be 30 minutes will last an hour. But you will normally get to a comfort area where everybody agrees that not only have you identified the right threat, but that you're also putting forth the correct recommendations.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I think when you say mindset, perhaps you're also maybe meaning critical thinking that intel
Yes.
analysts bring to the table, because that is one of our core skills alongside, just kind of providing that all source, analysis to the table. And I think that's kind of what intel analysts are trained to do from the onset, but also it carries on, beyond that, even as we transition to different careers that might not even be intelligence at the core. And so, For AIA, members who are kind of considering the transition to the private sector, what kind of opportunities do you see for intelligence professionals in the years ahead?
Well, it's not going to decrease, I'll tell you that much. And all of us are kind of boxed in based on our particular assignments when we were all in government, right? When I was doing full-time protection, guess what? Was I focused on investigations if they weren't protection related, like protective intelligence? No. I mean, even in those situations, the field offices would do those. Depending on where a particular analyst was assigned, whether in the FBI or another agency, that would be their focus. So I think what the opportunity is, and I do believe that most intelligence analysts in companies like mine would tell you the exciting part are the diverse sectors that you're dealing with on a daily basis. It's forcing the analysts to become better educated in all of these different sectors. And again, no two threats are going to impact the same sectors the same way. And then so imagine expanding that pie all across the board, going from something that's considered critical infrastructure in the United States to professional or collegiate sports teams or high net worth, high profile individuals, as we do on a daily basis. So to have this diverse set of clients that requires a change in thinking depending on who you're handling an issue for and evaluating a threat, I think is the excitement that lays in waits in the future for many of these analysts that are currently in government that will be transitioning to the private sector. Of course, that's where we go to look for our talent. Although, in the case of someone like Nikki, who left government, went to work for a major private sector pharmaceutical company, stood up that program. That's, of course, a value add for us as well, too, because we also now have the experience of someone who's not only been in government, but also had the private sector experience, something that I think was also valuable in my own journey before starting Sentinel. But now with AI too, I think there's so much excitement out there, and we're really involved now in the artificial intelligence space, especially as we enhance and offer these product lines from Sentinel to all of our clients with a deep, deep base in intelligence.
Yeah, those are all great points. And Chuck, before we wrap up, I'd like to leave our audience with, a forward-looking perspective. If you could leave the AIA members with one message about the future of the intelligence profession and its impact on security, what would it be?
I don't think that it can be overstated the importance that intelligence plays in today's world. And again, if you don't understand the threats, you're never going to be in a position to offer, I think, credible advice to people on how to mitigate the risks associated with these threats. So based on that importance and based on the fact that that critical thinking, that analytical thinking is more necessary than at any other time, at least that I've experienced. The job is a fulfilling job. It's an important job. And I can tell you by me, it is a respected part of what we do at Sentinel. And it requires that you keep an open mind. It requires that you be prepared to hear opposing views and opposing reasoning. And I think when you're open to that critical thinking and open to the dedication that many of the intelligence professionals I work with have for the position, then it makes you so much better, not only as the leader of a company, but also as somebody that's serving clients. And I think the conversations that we have and the products that we offer to our clients demonstrate all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. Thank you, Chuck, for this conversation. You really
Sure.
brought a lot of amazing insight and really thoughtful expertise on everything going on across the threat landscape, and especially about the intelligence profession. I think as we continue to grow, we want to emphasize, the skill sets that intelligence analysts bring to the table can be applied across the board. They do deserve a seat at the table because they bring that, critical thinking mindset
Agree.
that you mentioned, and we want to continue to grow that. So thank you again for your time.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it and
All
hope to
right.
see you soon.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank
Enjoyed being
you.
with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.